Welcome to the exhibition of Sew Keighley Pride. We're doing a short tour to show you the space here at Keighley Creative for anybody who wasn't able to visit or who would like to visit again. Here we've got the Sew Keighley Pride flag that was made between February and July from hundreds of hand-stitched patches sent in by members of the community, not just from people who identify as LGBTIQ, but also from allies, members of the public coming to workshop, and people sending in images, photographs and artwork of their LGBTIQ inspirations. By inspirations, we're looking at organisations, we're looking at ideas, friends, family, people in the public eye and people's own personal journeys. Our flag was stitched together by international textile artist Maria Spadafora, and she created this beautiful pride flag in Daniel Quasar's Progress Pride design from 2018. So local figures who are represented in the flag are people like Richard Dunbar, who is the LGBT lead for Bradford District. Helen Hallam, who is a local woman and a really staunch member of the Keighley LGBT community. She's worked tirelessly for LGBT and trans rights for a long time. And there was somebody who wanted to represent a local person on the flag, didn't know who Helen was, did some research and found her on the West Yorkshire Queer Stories archive and decided to stitch this in honour of Helen and her queer background and her teaching background. And so here she is represented on our flag. So here we've got a patch with Friend of Dorothy stitched with a rainbow. Friend of Dorothy was a slang term used to define gay people. It wasn't really safe for people to be out or expose their identity because it wasn't until 1967 when homosexuality was legalised in the UK. Judy Garland was a strong supporter of the queer community, and so if you were a friend of Dorothy, then you were aligned with Judy Garland, who really fought your corner. And what's really lovely about this patch is the Echoes of Oz project, which happened in Bradford in 2015, where 75 women dressed as Dorothy and danced in Centenary Square, all dressed in beautiful gingham, and that's what the background of this patch is stitched onto. And Stormy was somebody who was a massive part of the queer community in New York. She acted as mother for lots of queer young people. She was an amazing activist. She stood up for people. She turned up with bail money for people. She would turn up to help people get out of prison. She would feed people, and she unfortunately lost her in 2014. But with such a rich legacy, there was no way that we could leave her off the flag. So this patch in Arabic means my right to live, to choose and to be. And it's one of the taglines of ASWAT, which is an organisation based in Palestine. It's an LGBTQ feminist organisation. One of their banners and headlines is Palestine is a queer issue. There's a long tradition of queer people standing up for and being part of solidarity movements. Thinking back to the 80s with lesbians and gay support the miners, and thinking around things like Gays Against Nazis, where gay people recognised that it wasn't just their lives that were being put in danger from groups who opposed them, but gay people, queer people are also standing up in solidarity with people with whom they share oppression. And that's why there's an area that is devoted to Palestine. I think if we redid this flag, there would definitely be an area devoted to Afghanistan. And I also point us to patch over in the corner, which shows Ray from the bookish type, sporting a beautiful Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners t-shirt, which are still available and proudly worn today. Especially as in the 80s, the miner community that were supported by Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners led Pride. And I think that shows a real solidarity between groups that you wouldn't necessarily, that may on the surface seem disparate, but are brought together by a shared sense of oppression. When we all show up for each other's oppression, then it really shows a strength in solidarity, and it really shows a strength in allyship. And allyship is also represented in this lovely meme that went viral a couple of years ago when somebody flung a twister mat out of the window for Pride. It's like, we got a Pride flag, we've got a twister mat, that'll do. And Laura, who donated the patch, said that sometimes it doesn't matter if your allyship is a bit goofy, if it's a bit weird, if it doesn't quite land correctly. What matters is showing up, and what matters is showing up for people. And I think that queer people showing up for Palestinians, queer people showing up for the miners, means that there's a built solidarity between all groups who experience oppression. I couldn't have a tour without mentioning the real Banksy. This amazing patch, which Morwenna says is her favourite, and that's why it's front and centre, it wasn't stitched. It was made with contouring makeup, so the whole patch, apart from the wonderful hair and the wonderful dress, has been painted by Villith. He's a drag queen living in Manchester, and they are representing drag queens in general, but we think that it's probably based on the real Banksy. It's also a drag queen based in Manchester. We've got some really iconic figures represented in our flag. So I'll point you to Lady Phil, who's the CEO of UK Black Pride, who's recently won the LGBT Lifetime Award. I think that was announced this week. And again, Lady Phil has worked tirelessly for 25 years to elevate black voices within the LGBTI community. We're really pleased that Lady Phil is recognised on the flag as being an iconic figure in the queer community. So we can't talk about Sew Keighley Pride without talking about Keighley Pride. So Keighley Pride started in 2019 in Central Hall, and there was an amazing first Pride on the 14th of September. And this patch represents Keighley Pride as an organisation, and it was one of the first patches that was submitted. So that's really lovely. And one of the other patches that I want to point out is this one. So it was the exhibition that was made by Sound, which is the LGBT youth group in Keighley, and they made this giant pride head to be exhibited at the first Keighley Pride, and it was also at the third Keighley Pride, which was in 2021, and it was processed around Cliff Castle on the back of a truck, and you can see that video online as well. And here's another patch celebrating the first Keighley Pride. So this is Misty Valentine performing the Coca Cabana at the first Keighley Pride, and she was the compere for the evening event. So it's really fitting that we've got parts of the very first Keighley Pride celebrated in this flag. Our flag is using the Daniel Quasar's progress design, which includes and celebrates trans people and people of colour, and the original Gilbert Baker 6-striped flag. Daniel Quasar's flag represents the community as a whole. Obviously, we've got a redesign of the flag from Valentino Vecchietti, who has included the intersex community in the new redesign, we'd already settled on this design and started making all of the patches when the new design was launched. You can see our conversation with Valentino online on our website. So if I direct to the green stripe, so obviously the rest of the flag is made of individual patches, and when we were talking with Wenna in the first kind of conversations, we wanted to make sure that people as a whole were represented. So we decided to make the green stripe just people, people of all colours, all genders, all abilities, and for some, we've got some angels in here as well, which is really lovely. The people were made in public workshops, and the first of these were online, and then they were here at Keighley Creative, and then we had drop-in sewing sessions at Cliff Castle as well. We also wanted to represent the magicalness of the queer community, so you'll see lots of mermaids represented here as well. The mermaids were very, very popular, so popular that we had to make a separate mini flag just to accommodate everybody. I wanted to point out some of the people that have been made. So we've got Anne Lister here, who's also represented in other patches in the flag. Obviously, Gentleman Jack, Anne Lister, who lived at Shibden Hall, and is a historic figure, reclaimed. Her queerness has been reclaimed by the community as a proud ideal. So we've got some people that are represented as individuals. We've got people who are represented with the pansexual flag here and holding rainbows. We've got people who are representing their non-binary identities, and we've got people who are representing members of their family, and you can read all about these in our zine. So inspirations can come in the form of organisations as well, and we have lots of organisations represented here on the flag. So we've got Yorkshire Mesmac, who are a sexual health charity, who do a massive amount of work with the LGBT community as well as other communities within the West Yorkshire. We've got Equity Radio Show. They do lots of work with young people, with older gay people, and run lots of groups and support groups supporting people's mental health and well-being. We have got Free to Be Me, who work a lot with refugee and asylum seekers. They're a really grassroots group, and what they wanted represented was the first queer allotment that's in the country, they believe. So that's what they've got represented on the flag. One of our other Pride organisations, so we've got Happy Valley Pride, who are based in the Calder Valley, who represent prides in Hebden Bridge, in Todmorden, Mythen and around the Calder area. And Keighley Sound, and they are a really wonderful supportive peer group of young people, and it's also worth mentioning Shade, who aren't on the flag but who are in the zine, and who spoke at our closing event, and they are a youth group for LGBTQ people of colour. So if you missed out on making a patch, there's still ways to get involved. On the back of the flag, we've started to build ribbons. So we've got an ever-growing wall of ribbons, and we invite anybody to come along and write their LGBTIQ inspiration onto a ribbon and pin it to the flag. So we've got lots of people represented who didn't make it onto the front of the flag, people like Heather Karina, who is the founder of Scarletine, which is a youth organisation based online supporting LGBTQ youth. We've got our very own Doll's Nest, who's a Keighley queen, Keighley drag queen, and we've got Gilbert Baker, who was the designer of the original Pride flag in 1970. So here we've got our wall of Pride flags. We've put them in chronological order from the original Pride flag designed by Gilbert Baker in 1978, invited by Harvey Milk to design a flag that was representative of the whole queer community. We're moving on to 1979, where the original flag, unfortunately, it was very difficult to get the hot pink stripe. So it was very difficult to get dye to be able to dye the flag that colour. So the hot pink stripe was dropped, and the turquoise and indigo stripes were amalgamated into a royal blue, and this has been the most popular Pride flag. That's still the most popular flag that you see all over the place. You see this flag, you know it's a Pride flag. So we're moving on to 2017. It was recognised in the city of Philadelphia that there was ongoing racism within the queer community, and this was just unacceptable. So activist Amber Hikes and the Philadelphia City commissioned the redesign of an 8-colour flag to include people of colour and to put them front and centre. And as queer people of colour were so instrumental in the evolution of Pride, it's really fitting that they are celebrated in the Pride flag. 2018 saw a redesign again, including Monica Helm's trans flag. So Daniel Quasar redesigned the Progress flag, celebrating the Philadelphia flag, celebrating Monica Helm's flag, and also recognising the historic flag that was based on the Gilbert Baker design. The chevrons coming in at the left represent how far we've come as the queer community, but also how far we've come to travel. And this year there was another redesign by Valentino Vecchietti, who's the founder of Intersex Equality Rights UK. So Valentino Vecchietti in 2021 redesigned Daniel Quasar's flag, again representing the history and celebrating the historic flag that has come before them, to include Morgan Carpenter's 2013 design of the intersex flag, representing the wholeness and completeness of intersex people. So thank you for coming to our virtual tour of Sew Keighley Pride. The flag is really beautiful and holds such a wealth of stories, and you can see in the work that the overwhelming message of the flag is love. That love, kindness, respect and acceptance are qualities that every person deserves unconditionally. We hope that the flag will play a part in allowing these qualities to flourish and thrive. We recognise it's an ongoing journey to collectively achieve this, and we use Pride to stop and reflect on how far we've come in order to gather the energy and momentum to keep going.